Hi class, today we are going to be talking about a few different things, just wrapping up group. This will be the last live lecture from me. Next week there will be additional information that you'll probably get to read and see, but you won't have a live lecture from me. A lot of work has been submitted in the last couple weeks. I've been enjoying wrapping up some of the videos and reading your reaction papers. I'm glad a lot of you saw the validity in the assignment that you had to do, one of the major assignments you had to do, and that you were excited about what you learned and maybe even more excited about group. A lot of what I'm reading when you look at the critical side of what you learned from the group assignment is that you felt like you rushed or you were nervous, which is totally normal in a role play situation. It's not natural. Not to say you won't have nerves when you're dealing with real clients, as we need to take what we do very seriously, but I think it's a learning curve, and once you get used to doing what you're doing, you won't be as nervous, and so hopefully that gives you some hope. Also, you felt like you moved through the curriculum or whatever you were teaching quickly, and that's okay too. Again, this is like you're trying to meet markers for grades, somebody's watching you, all those things that cause someone to move quickly. So I don't hold that against you. Like, I get it. It's nerve-wracking. Sometimes actors are harder than people. And so please, I take all that into consideration. I think too, we saw some stress with like silence. And I just want to say, like, this is something that you'll learn even in individual therapy, that silence is golden and beautiful. And like when we allow clients to be silent, we allow for them to process and to take some time and to really think. Sometimes the silence is them like really taking something in and just really thinking about it. Not everybody is like quick on their feet with words. And so allowing that room or that space to fill the room and being comfortable with it will be something that you will make peace with over time. I know, again, like you're in this forced situation, so it feels like I need everyone to talk. But that is something that you will get used to. I saw a lot of great things that you were able to notice about yourselves, and I'm just glad we've had that time to reflect and look back. We have a few more things coming up. We have a couple more discussion boards. You have a final exam and your last assignment, which is the capstone. We will take some time and go over that at the end of this time. And so we will be wrapping all things up in regards to this class. We are almost done, made it through your first session, which is really great. It's a lot, right? There's a lot that happened in this time frame. So we're talking about groups in school counseling settings. Groups are very much used in school counseling settings. If you plan to get your PPS credential or work in an elementary or junior high, you will see that groups are utilized, one, because you get to reach more kids at once. And so you'll see social skills groups, maybe grief groups, depending on some situations that have happened with kids. You can have behavioral type groups, psychoeducational groups, a lot of different groups that help people. But there's many different forms of groups that can happen in a school setting that can be very useful to kids. And like I said, reach more kids at once, which is nice and convenient. So, again, in school settings, like what you'll be dealing with, not to say all the things don't happen in school settings, they do actually, but with the amount of time that you have and what the school counseling is meant for, there's a lot of referrals out. So that might happen. So you need to know like when to refer, depending on what comes up, if it's more of an individual situation or if it is something that is appropriate to be handled in group. All these things are things that you have to like weigh the pros and cons about, okay? There is room for therapy in schools, but it's just the longevity of it and the intensity of it is what needs to see, like, is this a good place for this situation or does this need to be handled elsewhere, okay? So working with adolescents, you're going to make sure you have your goals described appropriately, articulate boundaries, confidentiality. As we know, they all go to school together, so it's different than maybe in a public group with adults. Like, you may not run in the same circles, know each other, live in the same area, but in this situation, these people are going to see each other, and so that's where confidentiality and really trying to form that trust is really important. and why we want people to be able to be vulnerable in the group, right? And so if we're not able to trust one another, we're not going to be able to be vulnerable. We want to make sure we're clear on what we're expecting, what the rules are, what's the purpose, and then kind of go from there. And so we just want to make sure there's a lot of structure. Obviously, mandated reporting still applies, the HIPAA rules still apply, all those things still apply. But making sure the kids are clear on what the rules and the laws are is important. And again, I think the real huge emphasis on confidentiality, because they're all in the same setting. Even them all being invited to attend the group is kind of vulnerable because they're all seeing each other, right? In the group setting. So, it'd be very easy to be like, well, I know so-and-so has to go to this kind of group. You know what I mean? Like, it's not cool. That's not the nature or purpose of groups. So just some things to kind of take into consideration when working with younger people. I think group is so great in that age range because, one, it allows kids to know they're not alone. There's other people that feel the same way. There's other people experiencing this. When you think of grief groups, like there's many kids that have lost like parents or loved ones or guardians, people caring for them. And so to feel like I'm not the only one facing this situation, I think is huge. And that's the beauty of group. It makes you not feel alone, not so isolated. Yes, it does that for grown-ups too, but it also can do that for minors. And I think there's some level of accountability and learning when your peers kind of call you out potentially, because you're like, oh, wow, they think that. Like, it's not just a grown-up that thinks that, like, they think that. And so I think that is really powerful as well. So there are a lot of groups that are in a community setting, right? We have groups for women, groups like trying to get women connected to women, helping them find their voice, maybe women who have been in abusive situations, who have felt some level of oppression, learning how to be assertive. Assertiveness training is a potential group. There's groups with men, helping them to be maybe a better father or a better dad, just how to be a man in today's society. There's a level of educational components to either kinds of these groups. It's psychoeducational, it's developing, it's, creating a space for these people to just learn and grow and be challenged, maybe based on experiences that they haven't had. There's groups for people who have been violent in relationships, as well as groups for people who have been victims of violence. And so, there's room for everybody in a group setting. There's a lot of groups for perpetrators, there's groups for pedophiles. There's all kinds of groups out there. And so there's something out there for everyone, really. I mean, and nowadays with the internet, as disconnected as it may make us feel, there are a lot of different ways that you can be reached, especially if you live in a more rural place with the internet, and have access to some sort of level of a group setting, even if it isn't actually in person, which is pretty awesome. There's a lot of substance abuse groups for people who are in treatment, and people who are just really working through, whatever their vice might be, whether it be alcohol, drugs, prescription pills. Like I've mentioned, there's like food addiction groups. There's pornography, sexual addiction groups. There's a group for everything, codependency. And so there's a lot of groups out there. And so being able to come alongside with people struggling, understanding the struggle. A lot of us can think very black and white and be like, why do you struggle? Just stop. It's not that simple. There's a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy that goes into these kinds of groups, behavior changes. And just like, once you're addicted to something, there's even a medical component, and that's when we talk about inpatient care to detox appropriately, because you can really hurt yourself if you don't detox appropriately. And so, but there is a group out there for everyone. There's groups for people who are looking into dealing with aging adults, for older people, aging gracefully, talking about the trials, the issues that are involved in aging and losing independence and frustrations and all those kinds of things. I think it's a great way for people to not feel alone. I think a lot of people in the aging population feel very isolated and alone. I think a group can be very helpful because it allows people to not be filled by themselves. It hears other people facing the same situation, which again is freeing, not so isolating, all those kinds of things, okay? And so those are just, some information. We talk about loneliness, rejection, grief, dependency, sadness over physical and mental disorientation. There's a lot of loss that happens for an aging community. And I think as people age, they start losing their friends. And so their circle just becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And depending on family involvement, it can feel very, very isolating and small and very lonely, and so that's where people are just looking for someone to connect with and looking for people just to be around, and so body awareness, grief work, occupational therapy, music and art therapy, dance and movement, pre-retirement, post-retirement, all those kinds of things. Also, there's groups for caregivers, because that is a population that gets very worn out, and that's where we see a propensity for adult protective services comes in, because there's a potential for abuse, which sounds so terrible, but it can be really hard being a caretaker, really, really hard and really challenging, depending on what your aging adult is going through. That person may not even act like the person you knew. It can be very, very hard. And so caregivers need support as well, and just to not feel alone in what they're going through and how draining and hard it is. There's a lot of hoops, a lot of red tape. It can be very, very draining and difficult. So there's a lot of options out there. There's a group for everyone. And when I say that, I mean that. There is a group for everyone. So for your capstone, you guys are going to create your own group. So you are going to create an 8 to 10 session intervention for a closed group. The group should target a particular disorder, so life stressor, anxiety, depression, job stress, parenting skills. You're going to provide the background of the group. So these are some of the identifying things you have to talk about. Provide the background of the group, articulate specific measurable and attainable goals, discuss specific practical considerations in creating the group, the type, the size, discuss how a multicultural perspective informs the format of the group, develop an outline of the group's weekly topics. So an outline is not extensive. Remember, outline of a paper, it's brief. Provide a detailed description of one full session. So one full session will be detailed. We're going to start the session this way. This is what we're going to discuss. And utilize a minimum of 10 peer-reviewed journal articles, okay? Now, this is allow you to bring together what you've learned and create a group for yourself. Maybe a group you'd be interested in hosting in the future, right? The paper should be between 10 to 12 pages, and students will be evaluated based on the criteria I listed. What I would suggest is almost writing the paper part one, I'm not saying you put a 1 in it because it's APA, but background, then articulate your measurable goals, then discuss all the practical considerations, what kind of group it is, the size of the group, all the basics, how often it's going to meet, what orientation you're going with. Then, what's the multicultural perspective you're taking? Develop the outline, then give the detailed one session, then make sure you're including journal articles that are defending why you're doing what you're doing. I would say go in this order, because then if you look on week 8 learning activities, you're going to see the breakdown of how we're grading the assignment. I know this is a lot. However, you remember your outline will take up a few pages as you're writing everything out. It really will kind of move quickly once you see how you're formulating 8 to 10 sessions. Just in that outline, it's going to take up space, right? We want to see that you're prepared. If you were to say, hey, I really want to lead a grief group, and I'm handing this to my supervisor saying, this is my plan for my grief group. You're selling it, right, to me. And so I don't want you, I know it's overwhelming. You have the final as well. But this is the last thing for this class. So pick a topic. It might be a little group, the kind of group you led for your role play group, because you learned a lot in order to prepare for your role play group. Use it. I don't mind. This is the purpose of the capstone. So I kind of wanted to touch on that so that you guys were prepared and ready. Hopefully, maybe you've started working on it a little bit. That's why I don't include a live lecture week 8. We don't have a discussion board week 8. You just have a discussion board week 6, which I'll be grading, and week 7, and then it's your whole focus. Now, the capstone is due before Sunday, so it's going to be week 8, day 4, just because I have to get through all the grading in order to submit the grades and have them ready for you to get the grades. So just a heads up on that, so get it done as quickly as you can. But I look forward to checking them out and looking them over. I'm sure you'll all do a phenomenal job. Again, though, we're almost there, guys. We are done with this class. Also, I'm offering 10 points extra credit if you do the survey. Just once you do the survey, I just need you to send me an email saying that you completed it, so then I can mark off that you took care of it, and then you'll get the points. Okay, and I'll put that in announcements as well. I think they're coming out soon. So anyways, great time having you all. Enjoyed watching your videos, and I wish you all the best. Good luck. Hopefully I'll see you or talk to you again.